Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's up and what's good? I'm Brolo back at you with another edition of Brolo's Picks. Here, we're going to do another mock draft. It's going to be just the first round. The draft is tomorrow. Super excited, and let's get right into it here. So, number one, obviously going to be Caleb Williams. There's not really too much to say about this pick at this point. He's the consensus number one player on the field, and yes, there is a couple question marks with him, but you really cannot deny what you've seen on tape. Now, going over to number two, this is still a debate between Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. Now, betting lines, I believe right now are minus 500 to go Jaden Daniels. However, I think that's just noise. I'm going to stick and pick with Drake May here. I just really don't think that Jaden Daniels is going to be all that in the league. May really has the arm talent as well as the wheels, even though not really many people think about that. I don't know why. I really hate to say this, but he gives me a lot of Josh Allen vibes, so I think that'll be pretty successful. Now, going over to pick three, New England Patriots. This is tough. There's a lot of speculation if they're going to trade and just gain assets, or if they're going to stick and pick here. I personally think they're going to trade, and I'm going to have a trade here. Now, this is going to be a little weird, but I'm going to have the Raiders move up to number three. What I think this deal legitimately looks like is a pick swap. New England sends pick three, maybe like a mid or late pick. The Raiders will send pick 13. I think they also are willing to deal Davante Adams for a quarterback here. So I'm going to chalk in Davante Adams on this deal. Maybe they would give up another pick in this mid-range too, maybe move back a round or two, or they might give up like a future fourth or something to get this done. I really don't know how NFL teams will value Davante Adams with his age, but I'm just going to make this and let it go through. With that being said, the Raiders are going to select Jaden Daniels. There is a familiarity with Antonio Pierce and Jaden Daniels going back to Arizona State. I think they're going to reconnect. I think they're going to do good things in the league. Plus, the Raiders are set up to where Gardner Minshew can start for half the season or more, so Jaden Daniels can kind of learn his system there. Now, going over to pick number four, we have Arizona. This is another potential trade destination. I just don't think Arizona can move off of this pick for what's available here. They trade away DeAndre Hopkins last year. They also let Hollywood Brown walk. They need a receiver. Marvin Harrison sitting right there. There is reports that they really like Joe Alt. Maybe they trade down a spot or two with the Giants if they want to trade up for a QB, go with Joe Alt instead. I just don't see that being a thing. I'm going to have Marvin Harrison go. Going over to pick five, we have the Chargers. This is a popular destination for a trade, and this is what I'm going to do as well. I'm going to have them trade. Minnesota is actually going to want to trade up and get their guy at QB. There's been talk and speculation of the Vikings wanting to trade up and try to get Justin Herbert instead of a rookie quarterback. While I think that would be an amazing fit for them, I just don't really see it happening. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to want to trade off of a franchise guy only to draft a potential franchise guy. Yes, that potential franchise guy will be J.J. McCarthy, who he coached in college. I just don't really see that happening there. It just doesn't make sense to me. However, the Vikings trade up and get that guy, J.J. McCarthy. They're not going to be able to sign Justin Jefferson unless they go QB in this draft. I don't think he's going to want to play on a franchise tag. I think he would hold out, and rightfully so. I mean, he is the best receiver in the league, the best receiver we have seen in quite some time. While I don't fully agree that players should be able to kind of hold out there, it just makes sense. Now, with us going over to pick six, the New York Giants. I mean, there's people that say they need a quarterback. I personally don't see it. I think they can get by with Daniel Jones for right now, just because there's bigger needs. They need offensive line. They need skill position on both offense and defense. With that being said, they're going to go with, in my opinion, the safest player in this draft, Rome Odunze. They're in this weird predicament right now where their front office and coaching staff might not be back in 2025 unless they hit in this draft and perform well this season. With Rome being a safer asset than Malik Neighbors, in my opinion. I think the Giants are going to go the safe route, go with Rome, who is a little bit more of an X receiver than Malik is. Not to say Malik can't fill that position, but Malik is more versatile and deadly in the slot, whereas Rome operates exclusively outside in the numbers. Yes, he can go in the slot from time to time. They have Jalen Hyatt there. He kind of fills that hole, so it just makes sense to have Rome be that bona fide X. Now going over to number 7, Tennessee Titans. They've been working on offense all offseason, bringing in new receivers for Will Levis to throw to. I think they're going to continue working on offense and go best trench player available in Joe Alt. He's 6'8", 300 plus pounds. He's going to be a mauler. He's that Taylor Lewan replacement that they've been so desperately looking for. Now this is where the draft starts to get a little weird. Going to pick 8 with Atlanta. There are multiple needs here. Yes, they could go receiver. They don't really need to go Brock Bowers. It just doesn't make sense there. They could go edge rusher. They could go defensive back. They could go offensive line. They just really need people. I'm going to have them going defensive back, and I'm going to have them going Quinyon Mitchell. This dude was a stud coming out into the Senior Bowl. He locked down pretty much anyone that was in front of him, and he's one of the better run defenders in the defensive backs. Now, Nate Wiggins has been getting a lot of heat because he is terrible at run defense. Quinyon Mitchell is at least willing to play in that defensive scheme, and if the ball gets ran over to him, he's not afraid to go make a hit. Plus, he has blazing speed, and he's pretty tall. So just really all the factors that you would like to see in a number 1 corner. Going over to pick 9 brings us to Chicago Bears. Now, earlier, obviously, they drafted Caleb Williams. They only have 4 picks in this draft. They have more than 4 holes that they need to fill. Yes, there's still time for free agency. I just don't see that happening, so I'm going to have them trade down here. I'm going to have them trade with the Indianapolis Colts. What I think really would happen is they trade 9, they get 15, they probably get picked like 117 and maybe 191. Maybe a couple other picks instead, like 182, 151 or something, but just for this exercise, I'm going to just do a swap for first-round picks. With that, the Colts trade up. They jump a few of these teams here. They're going to go Brock Bowers at pick 9. Now, yes, they could go Malik Neighbors, and I think maybe they probably will do that if they trade up. However, I just think Brock Bowers is more valuable because he can play in more positions. He's listed as a tight end, so obviously he can play there. He can play H-back. He actually did that quite a bit in Georgia. He can even play in the slot as well, so he can technically be a receiver for this team if needed. And honestly, he's going to make Anthony Richardson's life so much easier, and that's what you need. You have a young franchise QB on his rookie deal still. You're going to have to build a team around that and hope to win a Super Bowl under that deal. Not everyone's going to be Mahomes and just elevates everyone's level of play. Anthony Richardson's best shot at becoming elite is going to be with Brock Bowers, also with Michael Pittman Jr., maybe add another receiver day 2. But I think this is going to be a good nucleus for the Colts to build in. Now going over to pick 10 here, the New York Football Jets. What do we do here? This front office, just like the New York Football Giants, might not be back in 2025, with expectations sky high of going to the Super Bowl or bust, bringing in Aaron Rodgers last year. He lasts 4 plays, torn Achilles, out for the year. They bust, obviously. They move on from Zach Wilson. I don't know how they were able to, but they got a pick swap moving up 1 round into the 6th round. I mean, it's better than just cutting him and getting nothing, I guess, so good on you for there. However, I think this front office is going to be in a desperate move to get more players for Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to go Malik Neighbors. I really think that the safe play would be to go offensive line in case someone goes down. They always have injuries in the offensive line. That's just the New York Jets thing. However, this whole front office and coaching staff might not be there to see the fruits of their labors going with the offensive linemen. So they're going to try to get Malik Neighbors in, jumpstart everything, try to make a push for the division, especially now that Stephon Diggs is not in this division anymore. Josh Allen might not be QB1. He has not had good numbers without a bona fide number one receiver before. It's going to be new. Can he do it? Certainly, yeah. But it's going to be interesting. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Now going over to pick 11 here, the Chargers are on the clock. They traded from 5 back down to 11. There's multiple needs with this team right now, the way it's set up. They have no real receivers. They whiffed on receiver last year. They have bargain bin running backs who have question marks all over the place. They just brought in J.K. Dobbins, yes, but he's coming off of an Achilles injury as well. They did bring in Gus Bus and Gus Edwards, but he's going to be 29. Yeah, I mean, he can still have a little bit of success there, but they have no offensive line. They have somewhat of a defense. I think it's just time for a new culture. One of the hotter takes I have in here, they're going to draft defensive edge rusher Dallas Turner. Yes, they do have Joey Bosa on roster and Khalil Mack. Both are kind of oft injured. Both are really getting a little bit older, and both aren't on super long-term deals. They could move off of one or both of those players and just look to reset the whole defense. They could go defensive back as well, because that is a big need. However, I just think Jim Harbaugh is going to build this team from the trenches out. That's sort of what he mimicked in back in 2011 when he was the head coach of the 49ers. It worked for him, so maybe they'll find success here again. Going over to pick 12, we have the Denver Broncos sitting on the clock. They are the team that actually traded with the Jets for Zach Wilson. I still think there's a very solid chance that they go quarterback here, and Sean Payton's not done with that room. However, in this, I think Sean Payton's going to take his shot with Zach Wilson, try to make him a starting quarterback in this league. With that being said, they fill one of the biggest needs of this team and get their edge rusher number 1, Laiatu Latu. The reason why I went with Dallas Turner over Laiatu Latu is there is still just some lingering question marks with mostly medical to do with him. He did medically have to retire from football a few years ago, went to UCLA, was cleared to play, and was still dominant there. However, that's just lingering in his past. It's going to cost him 1 draft spot, but who knows, maybe it works out for the best there. Now, going over to pick 13, this is the Patriots pick. They traded with the Raiders in this scenario. The Patriots have needs all over the place. Yes, they could use receiver, even though in this mock I did have Devontae Adams getting traded over to New England. They do need offensive line help. They do need secondary help. However, I think they're going quarterback. My Washington bias is going to show, and I have Michael Penix Jr. rated way higher than Bo Nix. Michael Penix is just a winner through and through. He's a dog. He played at Washington. They're the Huskies. They're a dog. Yes, there's some question marks with Michael Penix's injury history. That was a few years ago at this point. He was in the national championship game. Yes, he was throwing to 3, quote, NFL receivers, but how much of that was actually Michael Penix making these guys NFL caliber receivers? Rome Odunze was going to be a first-round pick in his own way anyway, but Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, I'm not 100% sure on that. I think Michael Penix elevated the play of everyone around them. I think he's going to be able to do the same in New England. He's going to be able to afford to sit and learn behind Jacoby Brissett. They brought Jacoby in as a bridge quarterback on a 1-year deal. Michael Penix Jr. is probably going to benefit a lot from sitting and watching. I think this is a really good fit, and it's time for a culture change in New England, and Michael Penix can deliver that. Now, going over to pick 14 here, the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to have them sticking and picking here. Everyone and their mom is drafting offensive line for this team. Yes, that's going to be their biggest need. However, I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know why. I just feel very strongly they are going to go receiver here, address the offensive line a little bit later. They have Chris Olave, and then they have a failed quarterback in Taysom Hill to throw to. That's pretty much it. Derek Carr is not going to wow anyone with that receiving group. Bring in Brian Thomas, and who knows, maybe Derek Carr is going to have a revamped career, get a second contract before he retires in maybe 5 or 6 years, and just ride it out there. If not, going to be a new coaching staff anyway, and they might just take a QB, go forward, cut Derek Carr. Who knows? But at least give the guy a chance. You don't know what you have there, even though he's going to be 32, 33 this year. Just give the guy a chance. Going over to pick 15, the Bears traded down, got a couple more assets with the Colts. Now, this is a very interesting pick here. They could go pretty much anywhere. There's still multiple holes to fill, like I said earlier. They have a couple good corners. There's Terrion Arnold sitting here that could be a good fit. There's a couple linemen here that could be a good fit. I am going to go lineman. However, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Byron Murphy II out of Texas. Byron Murphy is a big pass disruptor coming from the middle. He can play 1, he can play 3, probably more suited to play 3, but he's still going to be able to play next to DeAndre Sweat. I think this is going to be the smart move for the Bears. They don't really have any sort of pass rusher behind Sweat. Byron Murphy, yes, he's a defensive tackle instead of an edge rusher, but he can still be super destructive in the pass, and he can stop the run very well. He's going to be a good culture fit for Chicago. They're going to be able to build a little bit more with the extra pieces they picked up as well. They're not going to be able to look back and say, hey, we whiffed here. I think they're going to get 2 studs in this draft, and these are the 2 studs. Now, going over to pick 16 is my team, the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, they find themselves in the middle of the first round, which is never good. You're not bad enough to get a top 5 pick. You're not good enough to really make a playoff run, so that's why you're right dab in the middle. Go Hawks. Now, I think they're going to go back to their old form and trade and just get more assets here. So I think John Snyder's going to cook something up, and I think the Eagles are going to move up. Mostly out of fear of trying to get their defensive back before some of these teams could come in and snipe them. So with this mock, I'm just going to do a first-round pick swap. However, I think the Seahawks are going to want to target a couple mid-round picks, maybe even a future third or something like that. You're only moving 6 spots anyway, so it's not like it's going to be a haul or a package or anything, but I mean, the Seahawks used to do this all the time. They've been very successful. They kind of moved away from trading down. They stick and pick, and usually their first-round picks were kind of whiffs over the past few years or so. Unfortunately, Pete Carroll is gone. Maybe that has something to do with it, and John Snyder's being able to take over full control of player personnel now, like he started out doing, and he was actually pretty successful. Now, obviously, this is the Eagles pick, so let's talk about them for a second. They just signed their wide receiver to a 4-year deal. They have A.J. Brown. Who knows if he's going to stay or go? There's a lot of people talking smoke that he's going to get traded on draft day again, or he's going to get traded coming into the season here. I personally don't buy it. I think they're going to have a great 1-2 punch at receiver, and they're going to need to fix some of their defensive issues here. I'm going to have them going with what they think is the best defensive player available in Cooper DeJean. The good thing about Cooper DeJean, he's very versatile. He played corner in college. He played boundary corner in college. I personally think he can stick there and play boundary corner as well. There's a lot of people that says he needs to move to safety. There's a lot of people that say that he can play in the nickel. I honestly think he can play anywhere in the secondary for pretty much any defensive scheme and be fine. He has the skill and talent to play on the outside. I just don't think NFL teams are going to agree with that, at least right off the bat. However, because of his versatility, I'm going to have him go above a couple of the other corners that we see available, like Terrion Arnold, scroll down a little bit, Nate Wiggins, who I mentioned earlier, and Kool-Aid McKinstry. All of which are definitely worth a first-round pick. I just think Cooper DeJean has that upside and versatility there. Now, going over to pick 17, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's obviously a lot of people on this board that really shouldn't be available right now because this is really just a talented class. With that said, I think the Jaguars are going to stick and pick, and they're going to go offensive line here. Now, which offensive lineman? Honestly, anyone really could be a fit for them. I think Talisi Fuaga is going to be the best bet here. I think he has the highest upside. He is a mauler. He is good in the run blocking. He is pretty good at pass blocking as well. This team is going to need to sign their franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he kind of got hurt towards the end of the season last year. Yes, they lost a weapon in Calvin Ridley. They could go wide receiver and replace him. I think they can find that later in the draft. I don't think they can find a talented offensive lineman like Fuaga later in the draft, so they're going to stick and pick here. Now, this brings us to number 18 with the Cincinnati Bengals. Really, everything I just said about the Jaguars is going to be the same for the Bengals. They're going to stick and pick. They're going to go offensive line as well. They are going to go Troy Fatianu. Reason being, everything that I said about Cooper DeJean really holds true with Troy Fatianu. Obviously, he plays offensive line instead of secondary. He can play anywhere on the offensive line. He can play either tackle. He can play either guard. There are people that say he can play center. I'm not 100% sure, only because I haven't seen it. I'm sure he has the skill set to do that, but because he's versatile and can play anywhere on the offensive line, I think teams will value that a little bit more. The Bengals have had injury after injury on the offensive line, and Joe Burrow has been hurt pretty much most of his career. So he's your franchise guy. You just signed him somewhat recently. You need to protect him. What better way than to get someone that can play pretty much anywhere on the offensive line? Now, going over to pick 19, we have the LA Rams. This is really weird because they actually have a first-round pick. The last time they picked in the first round was in 2016 when they selected none other than Jared Goff, who led them to a Super Bowl, lost, and then you trade him a year later. Now, he's with the Lions. They're leading the Lions possibly to future Super Bowl here. Who knows? Maybe he actually was a good quarterback. Anyway, the Rams find themselves with the first-round pick they didn't trade away. Now, learning from history, I think this is going to be a draft day trade. Probably trade down into a second round, maybe a third, and pick up like a first or something. But with this exercise, I'm going to have them stick and pick. Aaron Donald just retired. You don't really have a bona fide edge rusher or interior rusher here. There's some players available. Yes, they do have a need for corner. Jalen Ramsey is getting a little bit older. I just think you cannot pass up on the talent with Jared Verse. He's the pick here. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's going to get the job done. Now, going over to pick 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a weird team. They're supposed to be really good on paper. They potentially have two franchise quarterbacks or zero, the way that you look at it. They have Russell Wilson. They have Justin Fields. Now, I think the Steelers are going to address the defensive side of the ball here. When you think of Pittsburgh Steelers, you think of a really good defensive team. That really hasn't been the case over the past few years. Yeah, they did bring in Joey Porter Jr. last year. However, I think they need more help in the cornerback department. Terrion Arnold is sitting here available. I think the slide of him is no more. He goes at pick 20. Welcome to the team. Going over to pick 21, Miami Dolphins. They lost Christian Wilkins in free agency. He's on the Raiders now. I don't know what they're going to do in cap space in regards of paying Tua, but they need to get him paid either coming into the season or the very end of the season. I don't think he's going to want to franchise tag him. I think he's going to hold out as well. So there's a lot of places that they can go. Offensive line, there's a really good player here. There's actually about 4 or 5 really good players on the offensive line available. However, I think they're really going to go after Johnny Newton here. He's honestly a mini version of Aaron Donald. If you can get that, that's going to be amazing for your pass rush there. I mean, yeah, I said it earlier. You have Josh Allen. You have Aaron Rodgers if he's healthy. You potentially have Michael Penix Jr. to play against as well. These quarterbacks aren't going to be the same as having Tom Brady in the division here anymore, but you still need to disrupt the pass. Welcome, Johnny Newton. Now, this brings us back to my team, the Seattle Seahawks here. I really do want to have a second trade down. However, I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I think they're going to stick and pick and go, in their eyes, the best player available. I tend to agree, especially with the need of this team. I'm going to have them go in Jackson Powers-Johnson, JPJ. The last time the Seahawks had a really dominant running game was when they had Max Unger. That was way back in the day with Marshawn Lynch, and a couple running backs before him too. However, I don't know why, but Pete Carroll wanted to trade away Max Unger and get Jimmy Graham into this building. He didn't really live up to expectations, and he pretty much peaked at the time when he left New Orleans, left Drew Brees. Russell Wilson, he was still up and coming at that time, and yes, maybe Jimmy Graham helped Russ develop a little bit more. I just don't think that trade really worked out. Now, where I'm going with this, Jackson Powers Johnson is pretty much the Max Unger replacement from several years ago. With this new offensive system coming in, offensive coordinator from Washington, head coach from the defensive coordinator from the Ravens, I really think they're going to want to establish the run. Personally, I'm not a Geno believer. I don't think he's going to be the guy. I think Sam Howell will eventually start this year. Maybe he's the guy you move forward with. If not, I don't know what's going to happen because I think there's still a decent roster. They're probably going to be back in the purgatory area of picking in the middle of the first round next year. Let's hope not, but I think that's going to ultimately happen. Now, going over to pick 23, we have the Chargers picking again. Like we said earlier, they traded down from pick 5, got pick 11, and now they have pick 23, courtesy of the Minnesota Vikings. Here, Jim Harbaugh is going to continue building through the trenches. He is going to end the slide of Olu Falashanu. He got to see firsthand how Olu played. He actually played pretty well against a lot of talented teams this year against Penn State. Last year, he could have come out and been probably a top 10 pick. This year, he slips to pick 23, at least in this mock. This draft is just uber talented. Unfortunately, that's just the way the dice fell here. But I think the Chargers make the right move. Trade back, acquire assets, build from the trenches, see what you have in your young players, and kind of go from there. Going over to pick number 24 brings us to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, they had pick 24 a couple of years ago. They actually hit and took Tyler Smith on the offensive line. They're going to stick and pick here and go offensive line as well. Tyrone Smith actually left in free agency, who's now on the Jets. They have a big hole at left tackle. I think J.C. Latham is going to be their guy to fill that need. Going over to pick 25 brings us to the Green Bay Packers. They are notorious for not drafting any offensive skill position in the first round, something that Aaron Rodgers was very critical on towards the end of his tenure there. They really don't have a need for that right now, so they're obviously not going to look there. There's a lot of people that say they're going to go offensive line. However, I think they're going to go defensive back here and kind of build their secondary up. They did something really weird. They actually spent a lot of money in free agency. I don't think they're going to be done. Yes, they brought in Xavier McKinney, but he's going to be a safety. I'm going to have them sticking and picking here and go Kool-Aid McKinstry. Going over to pick number 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What I mentioned earlier about the Seahawks wanting to trade down, I really wanted to have the Bucs trade up. But there's just no one I can justify the Bucs trading up for, so they're going to stick and pick, see what falls to them. They're going to be happy with this. They're going to go Chop Robinson here. They really need edge rusher. The division that they're in is really going to be a cupcake division. Chop Robinson might be a little raw, but he is uber talented. He has all the potential in the world. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. He just needs to refine his skills a little bit. I think in Tampa Bay he's going to be able to do this. He ends up might being the steal of the draft. We'll see. Now going over to pick number 27, Arizona Cardinals. They addressed wide receiver earlier. They could honestly double tap wide receiver here with a couple people that are available. However, I don't see them doing this. I'm going to have them stick and pick at number 27 and go Nate Wiggins. They need secondary help. Nate Wiggins ran a 4.28 40, and he's 6'2". He's tall, he's fast, he's strong, he's very good against the pass. He is very suspect against the run, however. I think Arizona can fix this, but the talent's just too good to pass up here. Now going over to pick number 28 leads us with the Buffalo Bills. Now, there is so much speculation out there that they're going to go wide receiver. There's speculation that they're going to trade up and go wide receiver. I very well think they could trade up and try to target Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think they're going to pick wide receiver here, though. Reason being, the only one that's a super good fit is going to be Adonai Mitchell. But they moved off of Stephon Diggs, I think because of character issues, locker room issues. He's not really a good fit. Allegedly, Adonai Mitchell takes plays off. Kind of sounds like a diva to me a little bit. I don't think you're going to want to move someone like Stephon Diggs for someone similar like Adonai Mitchell. If Adonai can play like Stephon Diggs, he's going to be an amazing talent in this league. For the Bills' culture and locker room, I just don't know if that's going to be a fit. This isn't going to be a huge position of need here, but they're going to go best player available. They're going to go the last remaining offensive lineman in Amarius Mims. Now, Detroit Lions sit at number 29. This franchise has turned around tremendously. Dan Campbell did an amazing job here. Yes, we all poked fun of him at his press conference saying that they're going to be biting kneecaps, get knocked down, bite the other kneecap. Look at them now. They were, honestly, one game away from the Super Bowl. I personally think they should have won that game, but just the 49ers were just too good. Like, you can't really stop them, unfortunately. However, Dan Campbell's going to get another player that we're going to scratch our heads on and say, why pick this guy here? And then halfway through the year, you're going to be like, why did this guy not get mocked in the first round? Yes, my Washington bias is coming back. We're going Braylon Trice. The reason why I think Braylon is going to be a first-round pick, he's a bona fide stud. He has got that dog in him. He is a leader of men, and that's exactly what the Lions are looking for here. They went Aiden Hutchinson a couple years ago. Very good pick for them. Braylon Trice can play off of Aiden Hutchinson on the other side as well, or spell him from time to time too. I just think he's a Dan Campbell player. Some people would say Darius Robinson can fit this scheme as well. While I do agree, I think Braylon Trice just has all the potential in the world. Now going over to pick 30, we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens here. There are some needs, but really this is sort of a luxury pick because they're pretty decent at most positions. However, a big glaring need for them right now is going to be wide receiver. I'm going to have them finally taking Adonai Mitchell here at pick 30. Yes, Zay Flowers was a great success for them last year. They can build off of that, bring in Adonai as well. You still have Mark Andrews at tight end, and you have Isaiah Likely at tight end. Obviously, they have Lamar Jackson at quarterback as well, who's an MVP caliber player. He has two bona fide receivers that he can actually throw to now. Who knows? Maybe he can pass for 5,000 yards. I don't think so. I think they're going to still run the ball in this system quite a lot. But Lamar now has the potential to at least do that. People are going to have to respect the pass, open up more run lanes. They come down, they defend the run, bootleg play action, hit Adonai Mitchell deep for 70-yard touchdown. This offense is going to be rolling. Now, going over to pick 31, San Francisco 49ers. This one is also interesting because it's sort of a luxury pick for them. There's not super glaring needs. Yes, they could go offensive line and fix a couple holes. However, I think this is going to be more of a defensive pick by picking an offensive player and going Xavier Worthy. Reason being, I really think the NFL is going to be super fearful if Xavier Worthy's sitting at 32 and the Chiefs are on the clock. Honestly, I'm not sure if the Chiefs would pull the trigger there, but I think San Francisco is going to do that instead. Make sure they don't have that option. Now, I think it's going to be super interesting, though, because Josh McDaniels plays in a very similar system as what Kyle Shanahan runs. Josh McDaniels comes from that Shanahan tree of offensive coordinators. Just think if Tyreek Hill Jr. was going to be on the 49ers next to Debo, and as of now, next to Brandon Ayuk as well. That offense is going to be deadly. You don't know who's going to get the ball, if it's going to be McCaffrey or Debo, either in the backfield or out wide. Debo or Ayuk or Kittle, or now Xavier Worthy out wide too. There's going to be matchup nightmares across the board. Brock Purdy's going to have every chance to succeed. Probably be able to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in this league. Unfortunately, though, because he was picked, I don't even know what number, he was picked Mr. Irrelevant. He's probably not going to be a Patrick Mahomes type of contract, but I think he's going to get paid in the realm of maybe Jared Goff of $40 to $50 million a year. I think that'd be good for Purdy. Now, Going over to pick 32, Kansas City Chiefs, last pick for what we're doing here in the first round. There are some needs. Obviously, there's big news with Rashee Rice, potential legal issues. They could go receiver here and just kind of fill that hole for right now. I personally don't think they're going to do that, though. This is going to be the hottest, well, I guess the second hottest take I have for this. I'm going to have them go running back of all positions, and I'm going to have them taking Trey Benson. The reason being, yes, Isaiah Pacheco is a really good player for them. He runs super hard, but he also runs super hard. He could get injured. We really don't know longevity of running back in this league. It could be anywhere from 2 to 7 years. Tactically, picking a running back in the first round, yes, it doesn't make sense because there's so many better skill position players and line position players, but you get that fifth-year option for the running back. The NFL does not like to draft running backs and pay them after they draft them too. So reason being, they get the fifth-year option with Trey Benson. He's going to be somewhat cheap compared to all the other running backs on these big, or quote, big contracts. They get him for 5 years. Kansas City's not going to be able to really afford superstars next to Patrick Mahomes with his big deal, and Chris Jones, their defensive tackle's big deal too. They're going to have to draft their players and kind of mold them. So I think they're going to start with Trey Benson. Now, this pretty much wraps up my last video I will do for my mock drafts here before this NFL draft kicks place. Let me know in the comments below what picks you liked, what picks you don't like, how I'm doing good, how I'm doing bad. Let me know. But with that, peace.